What to think about.
Alrighty, everybody. Thank you and welcome to the Flag for Removal podcast hosted by myself, Joe Texquilini. Today we are joined by my co-host and friend from the DD214 Network podcast, Jay Campbell. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody, and welcome him in. How's it going, Jay? How are things in Missouri? How's life treating the resident shit talker from DD214 Network?
Well, first, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm doing fine. It was a lovely day here in Kansas City. Although it did get a little warm today. I think it got up to 90 today. So we had like one of our first like hot days, if you want to call that hot. That's not. I know in various parts of the country that's not hot, but it's like the first hot day of the summer. Put it that way. So yeah, things are going okay. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. So I mean, we'll just kind of dive right into this. We were doing a little bit of talking before the show, you know. It's weird. It's weird being co-hosts on a show together and now having you as a guest on my own personal show that we're kicking off with you being the first person here.
Much appreciated for that too. Thank you. It's an honor. It's an honor. Thank you.
As we, announced in our trailer, in our channel trailer, in the, this is what the show's going to be. This is 100% your floor. You talk about what you want, how you want, in the order you want. Some talking points I definitely feel would be interesting for our audience and to get to know you a little bit better. Not DD214 Network Jay, but the Jay I had beers with last year in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Life before the military, life during and even after, like,
sure.
Because there's things that we don't talk about often.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because what we do on DD214 Network is a far cry from what you might call objective reality. There is an element of what we like to refer to as kayfabe, the professional wrestling term for, are you in character, basically? And there are elements of our show where we are definitely 100% in character, and it's not exactly who we are as people or how we might behave around others, if you want to call it that. It's a lot of it is having fun and kind of being in like the smoke pit, like taking a breather, you know what I mean? And just shooting the shit. So
it's kind of, I think the best way to put it is DD214 Network is our church, Yeah.
It's where we go to have fun. We go there to have fun. It's not, we don't take it or ourselves so seriously that we're not afraid to say stupid stuff sometimes. You know what I mean? Not to necessarily knock,
pull on the strings of the organized religions out there and stuff by, saying, hey, people are putting on a face and a show when they go to church. But
no,
I've been in enough churches in my life.
and those people do exist, like, that's why I prefer the professional wrestling term of kayfabe, right? Like,
yeah,
because actually, organized religion was a part of my life for a period of time before the Army. So that is a part of my life that, although I'm no longer what you would call a believer, I do remember that part of my life. I took it very, very seriously, and at one time I was. So it's not so. I'm with you. Like, I wouldn't knock it. I don't knock anybody for their beliefs or how they feel about stuff. You know what I mean? Spiritually, emotionally, especially, stuff like that. Because I was there. I vividly remember how it felt at the time. I still, every once in a while, I'll get on YouTube and I'll listen to some of the music that I used to listen to when I was in that part of my life. So anywho, yeah.
I mean, that's just like me. I mean, I was same thing, before the military. I grew up, I'll straight up say it. I grew up in a Catholic household. Of course, last name Squilini. That's 100%.
What are you gonna do?
You're fucking Catholic.
Good luck.
But the military and education and growing up kind of opened my eyes to other things. And I wouldn't say I'm not religious. I just have a different viewpoint on religion than I did then.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there was for me, there was no, what you would call like a clean break. I do not consider myself an atheist. I want to make that very clear. Like I consider myself a very staunch agnostic. It's not whether I think there is or think there isn't at this point in my life and where I've the point that I've reached. It's that I don't care. If that's like if I can be if I can be that blunt about it, I just don't care anymore, and I don't want to spend any more time in my physical life while I'm here on Earth worrying about stuff that is impossible to prove. And if anything is there, I'll find out when I get there. Because like on a long enough timeline, we all have an expiration date. So I'm not I ain't scared. Whatever. If there's anything over there, dude, like I'll face it. I'll face it when I get there. You know what I mean? Like, as far as that's concerned, like I got nothing to hide. You know what I mean? So.
Oh yeah. So I mean, well, shit. Let's talk growing up, Jay Campbell. Let's talk what that was like, because I mean, Arizona, my guy. Like, I know it can be rough on those streets.
The funny part is like it was. I was born here. I was born here in Kansas City. I was given up for adoption, and I was adopted at 2 weeks old by my parents, obviously. And we lived out here for about 4 years after I was adopted, a little over 4 years. We adopted my baby sister, and then about a year later after we got my baby sister, we moved to Tucson, Arizona. In those days, it was a town, it was a city of size, but when I say a city of size, I'm talking like the metro might have had like 250,000. Like the city probably like 150, 175. You know what I mean? And then the surrounding metro, probably put it up to like above 200, probably close to 250. During the time that I lived there and growing up there for 25 years, Tucson's population quadrupled. And I cannot state that enough. Like the city literally exploded. And so growing up there was very interesting. And growing up in Southern Arizona, obviously it exposed me to a lot of cultural elements. It's a huge melting pot there. So a lot of things, growing up that I considered normal, I didn't realize until I got into the Army, it wasn't normal for a lot of other people. You know what I mean? And then there were elements of, let's call it, bad behavior. Once I got to a certain age, where I did kind of run the streets a little bit, as far as like hanging out, partying, staying out late. Once I got above 21, hanging out at the bars with my buddies until fucking closing time if we felt like it that night. Just kind of stuff like that. I didn't live on like a terrible side of town at the time, but Tucson has always been kind of rough. It's what I would call a fighting town. Like it's one of those places, and you could say that about a whole lot of different places, but you can kind of tell the ones that are a little bit more rough around the edges. You know what I mean? There's a lot more blue collar, a lot more service industry, a lot more fucking trade work than there is white collar or, the Hollywood Hills, type, or even to that extent, even like small towns. Cause you can run into somebody just about anywhere. And I like to refer to Tucson as like one of the nation's biggest small towns. Like if you go to certain areas where you're from and stuff like that, you can't turn a corner without seeing somebody at the Circle K or running into them at the bank, or a restaurant or wherever you happen to be that particular day or night. So anywho.
So
Yeah.
I guess talking about like, that part of things and, after 21 running the streets, kind of being hoodlum.
That kind of started before I was 21, but we're gonna closing down bars and running the streets. Yeah, that's
you could legally close down bars. We'll go from that point forward. I will say I had a pretty idyllic childhood. I was never really for want. We weren't rich, but I would say we were comfortably middle class, probably at the time. This is
for perspective for everyone, I was born in 1981, so we're talking about the mid 1980s right now. So two parent household. Both of my parents worked. They were able to afford a comfortable lifestyle for me and my sister growing up. Put it that way. Not rich, not poor. It was we were basically like smack in the middle. So we didn't have all the special toys, but we definitely were not for want. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm not going to put on some kind of a front that like, that I grew up a certain way. However, once I got to a certain age, I started choosing, when you start choosing who your friends are, like when we get, when you get to like adolescence, pubescence, stuff like that. And the hormones start hitting and you're like, well, I like this more than I like that, and you stop playing with Legos and you stop playing with G.I. Joe and you start deciding like, who do I want to hang out with? And that's kind of where the ball got rolling. And then once I got into high school, it kind of snowballed from there. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, that definitely does. I mean, that's kind of, I grew up in a true small town, not like, and
you did. I never heard of it until you told me the name of it. So, you know what I mean? Like,
so, that's kind of the thing. That's just small towns though. Like you get to a certain age and then just, you get bored and there's nothing to do but go make trouble.
on one level or the other, and everybody has every group or clique or whatever you want to call it when you're growing up has their own level of what we do for fun. You know what I'm saying? I started young. That's the best way I can put it. I started young. I was always curious. I always had like a desire to like Starship Troopers were like, do you want to know more? It's like, what's the best way to find out? With your own two eyes. Like see it for yourself. And there were times I definitely got what I paid for. You know what I mean? On several different levels. And some were good, some were bad, and some were very, very ugly. Very, very ugly. So me and Tucson have a long-standing relationship, but it's also very love-hate. Very, very love-hate. So yeah. Are you okay?
Yeah, no, sorry, I've got to close this down. I paid last week to have someone come out to fix my lawnmower and hadn't heard from them yet. I called their appointment line today and found out that they were only accepting new customers if they signed a 3-year service contract. So I was like, hey, can you at least just give me a refund? And they were just calling me back. And because of the Apple ecosystem, it popped up in the corner and was showing me a transcript of the voicemail. So I kind of got...
You are literally the tech guy. Like you are the tech guy. Like I live in a house that was built in the 1950s, and like everything here is pretty functionally basic. You know what I mean? Like I don't want to say it's exactly old school, but it's you have to turn on a light switch. You have to turn on the stove. I can't just snap my fingers and say, hey Siri, turn on some music for me. I have a fucking record player. Put it that way.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
The only lights now, so since moving, the only lights I have now that do that are the ones here in my basement because they're the only light fixtures that take regular bulbs.
Right.
All the other light fixtures upstairs are like these little like LED boards where if the light goes out, you have to replace the whole light fixture. Yeah. And I'm like, why would you do that?
That's what I'm saying, homie. Like it's like that product obsolescence, man. Like
but again, like it's like I didn't put that in. That came with the house when we started renting it, and I'm like, from a renter's perspective, that's going to cost you a lot of money.
That's on the.
We digress.
You're fine. You can edit that out later. You're fine.
So, shit.
We were on Tucson.
Yeah, we were still on Tucson. So you 21,
22, 23,
closing out bars. From there, you joined the military, apparently. Obviously.
Well, there was a little span of time in between that and the military, and that was a very interesting time in my life. My best friend passed away when we were 22, so we had both just turned 22, and he passed away a couple months later, and that like rocked my world. That sent me into a fucking tailspin. That was the first he was like the first, like, you know, like of many to come. Obviously, when we talk about losing friends, losing family, I had a very dear friend of mine. I consider a brother. Like, our families are that tight. He lost his mother when I was in 7th grade. He was in 8th grade. That was a crushing blow for both of us. But it was not. But that, you know, it was. I still had my mom, right? Like my poor brother didn't. You know what I mean? And so it hurt everyone, obviously, but it hurts some more than others. You know what I mean? Like there's no way to replace people when they're gone. And so when my best friend passed away, I got kind of sent into like this insane fucking tailspin. And I giggle about it now, but I'm sure for everybody in my life, it was terrifying for like about the next 18 months, because that was when I really, really went dark into the streets, like doing dirt and like committing what I would consider low level fucking crimes, but they were crimes, 100% crime. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I cannot understate. Like I could have gone to jail many times. Many times.
You fell into a dark period of your life and kind of a depression because of what had happened.
Yeah.
And your coping mechanism was going out and doing hood rat shit.
Basically. That's probably the best way you can put it. Like, and then, but, you know, and by that time I had moved out of my parents' house. I wasn't beholden to anyone. I was single. I wasn't beholden to anything. Like nothing was keeping me on a chain in any regard, you know. If I didn't like a job, I would freaking turn in my 2 weeks and I'd freaking go get another one. You know what I mean? Make sure the bills, as long as the bills were paid, I didn't give a fuck. But there came a period of time where it got really bad. And it was about a year and a half after he passed away, I finally started getting my head on straight. And like, I got sober for like what ended up being like about 3.5 years, not quite, a little shy, but close enough to 3.5 years. I was sober, like everything. You know, got kind of religious for a while. Found Jesus, and I was doing the church thing like hardcore. You know what I mean? And but it kept me. Yeah. It kind of kept me in line. It gave me a path to follow and a discipline for life. You know what I mean? And then flash forward a year or two after that, or within that time frame, I met the person that would become my first wife, and we got married. And about 6 months after we got married, at the time she was working as a civilian DOD employee for the United States Army, of all things, believe it or not. Funny enough. And she got a wish list, and we put Kansas City on there for our wish list. And she ended up coming to Kansas City to work at the federal building downtown. And so we moved here to Kansas City, and we were here for about 6 months. And then she left me. And I was like, wait, what? Like, so now we've got like, you know, nut punch number 2 within the last, you know, at the time, what would have been within the last 6 years, 2 just ginormous lifelong nut punches, you know. And mind you, when she left me, like we hadn't even been married for a year at that point. So we're talking like we were married like 10, 11 months when she left me. And so I had to take a very long 2-day fucking drive back to Tucson, Arizona with my tail between my legs and go live with my parents for the first time in almost 10 years. And that was a gut punch. That was a gut punch, because I felt like, obviously, like nothing is ever going to be handed to us in life. I'm a firm believer in hard work and discipline and ethics and morals and all the fun stuff, right? Nothing's ever going to be handed to us. I don't expect life to hand me anything on a platter ever. But at the time, I had felt like I had worked so goddamn hard to come back from some serious adversity. A lot of it self-inflicted, admittedly. A lot of my adversity was self-inflicted. However, I felt like I had returned. You know what I mean? Like the king had returned, you know, and I was back on track to just getting my life together and, you know, being a man. You know what I mean? Like just being a fucking man.
Yeah.
And so, and now I'm driving back to Tucson to live with my parents for the first time in 10 years. And that shit was like, okay, motherfucker, you're 28. You're about to be 29 years old. What in the fuck are you going to do? Because mind you, I had spent my entire 20s doing primarily
whatever the fuck you wanted to.
Well, whatever the fuck I wanted, but as far as like work, it was like manual labor, construction, landscaping. A lot in the earlier days, there were a lot of Joe jobs, but once I hit like 22, 23, 24, it was all manual labor. So I'd been doing nothing but manual labor for the last like almost like 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had some skills with my hands and my body, but that wasn't what I want. That wasn't what I wanted for my life. I was excited to get out of Tucson and go explore the world. Does that make sense? And going back to Tucson, when I left Tucson, the most I ever made on a tax-paying job was $12 an hour. And that's after 10 years in the workforce. It took me 10 years in the workforce just to get to $12 an hour. Like going back to Tucson was like, what am I going to do? I don't have a degree. I'm not going to get a job at like, Raytheon or Bombardier. The city's not going to hire me because I'm not a veteran or I don't have an in. You know what I mean? Like the city's not going to hire me. The university's not going to hire me. Like I was going back to like digging ditches for like $8 an hour. And I was like sitting there driving like, dude, you're going to be 30 soon. What the fuck are you going to do? What the fuck are you going to do? Like just having one of those like life crises where like, all right, take a long, good look in the mirror. And when you go to bed tonight, you better think fucking real hard about what the fuck you want for yourself. Cause it's happening now. Like there's no going back. There's no turning back the clock. Whatever mistakes were made, they were made, but it's too late now. Fucking the only way out is forward. Like the path behind us is blocked, and that would come into play heavily later in the Army, obviously. You know what I mean? But it's a reality. Like sometimes the only way out is through. You know what I mean? And that's the best way you can put it. So by the time I got back to Tucson, I had decided that I was going to go see a recruiter and I was going to give the Army a shot. There was a time in high school where I thought about joining the Marine Corps. Like any freaking standard, whatever the fuck I was, like with my attitude.
I initially went to MEPS for the Marines, so.
Well, it's just, they have good PR. You know what I mean? They've got really good PR. Well, I decided not to join, but we're talking, I was 18 years old at the time. You know what I mean? Like literally 18 years old. So like,
and we're also talking late 90s at this point.
Yeah. And now 10 years have passed. And I'm like, fuck, if the Army takes you, because like, mind you, I don't have a criminal record. I have no criminal record. Like I never got arrested for anything.
Did like, a lot of criminal shit, never got arrested for it.
That's, I mean, we exist apparently. And
fucking horseshoe shoved up your ass that entire time, but
Yeah. And knock on wood, right? Like I was lucky, and I'm not going to put, there's no two ways about it. There were some nights I could just straight up say I got fucking lucky. That's it. Like I got lucky. Anywho, 10 years have now passed. I'm fucking 28 and I'm driving home and I'm like, go see a fucking recruiter. Like the wars by that time, the wars had been on for about 7.5 years. Like not quite, like about 7.5 years ish, somewhere in there. Like it was, this would be like late 2009. So like 8 years, the wars have been on. So this is during the Afghanistan surge that they had at the time. And so I sat my mom down the next day after, I got home, kind of chilled out for a little bit. And I slept that night. And then when I woke up the next morning, I sat my mom down and I was like, hey, Ma, like, I think I'm going to go see a recruiter. And she looked me dead in the eye and she's like, I think that's a good idea. And I was like, got mom's seal of approval, fucking like too easy. And that's basically what I did. I had to retake my ASVAB. And for some reason I got smarter in 10 years after high school, which I guess some of that comes with like life experience, You
I
know,
was going to say that's just kind of typical because I mean, even myself, where I'm, mid 30s now, I look back at 18-year-old me and I'm like, what the fuck
didn't,
was that guy thinking?
I didn't know shit.
18 years old, knocking up his first fucking girl,
Yeah,
fucking
didn't know.
having his first kid, getting married at fucking 19, getting divorced at 19.
Yep,
Like,
it happens.
what the fuck was 18, 19, 20-year-old me fucking doing? Like, just
Dude,
fucking the world, apparently. But
I can't. If I had a time machine and I could go back and talk to myself at various junctures in my life, we'll say like post pubescence, like starting at like teenage years and moving forward to like early 20s, I don't know if I would be nice or if I would just beat my own ass. I really don't. It's literally like I'm that close. I'm that close between the two because I realize how difficult I can be with other people just by virtue of my attitude, my being, and like my stature. And I know I can be difficult to be around. I cannot imagine what other people have to deal with sometimes when I'm like in my cups. You know what I mean?
I would definitely say if 35-year-old me were to meet fucking 17-year-old me, 16-year-old me, I
Mhm.
would whoop the ever loving dog shit out of my own ass.
Yeah. I mean, well,
Because
everybody needs to ask.
16, 17-year-old me fucking gave up a West Point scholarship to go fucking enlist.
There you go.
So like
That's right. It's that shit, you know. And it's well, and I've often wondered like what life would have been like if I had joined right out of high school, like branch irrelevant, Marines, Army, whatever, because I would have been in the military pre 9/11. So I would have been serving when 9/11 happened, and that would have changed the entire order of life for me, basically. Like a lot,
the
like
amount of stop loss you would have fucking had to go through if you joined pre
oh,
9/11.
well, that's one of 1,000 different things. We're talking like
Yeah, I mean, I'm just
everything would have changed.
veteran brain just goes straight to stop loss. That's just what happens when we're
I mean,
talking.
seriously. Well, there were guys when I first got in. You know, there were guys my age, but they were already sergeant first class. You know what I mean? Like, you know, one of my first on my first deployment, our company first sergeant, I think, was like a year and a half older than me, a year and a half, and he was our company first sergeant. You know, so at the time he would have been like 33. You know what I mean? Like shit like that, where it's like, yeah, you're gonna make sergeant major before 40. You know what I mean? Like literally, if you get lucky and you survive all your deployments and all the hopping around the Army has you do, you know what I mean? And on top of that, if you're good at it, it was not unheard of to make sergeant, you know, damn near master sergeant or sergeant major before 40. It was not unheard of. Like not even close. Like it was almost during GWAT, it was almost normal. You know, like if you were high speed in a certain MOS, you could make 7 and 7, and that's almost unheard of. Like nowadays, especially like in peacetime, 7 and 7 is like unheard of. And that's what I'm saying. Like, how do you make it in 5? You know what I mean? Like,
Well, the first thing is you go in as a fucking E4.
Well, right. But then,
I mean, that's really the fucking way. But
well, it's like you kick a lot of ass, you take a lot of names, and then basically all you're doing is waiting on time and grade. Then all you're doing is waiting on time and grade so that you can make the next rank. You know what I mean? Like straight up. I mean, that's what it is.
Because I mean, we've talked about it. We've talked about it on DD 214 Network. My fucking background with all that shit. Because I mean, I made 7 and fucking 5, and that was 100% right place at the right fucking time. Yep. MOS and the rank I fucking went through basic and AIT at.
Yep, and a little bit of luck. That's like when the ingredients mix, they mix, and it happens. And that's kind of what that's kind of what happened to me. You know, I was saying I had to retake my ASVAB, scored very high, and then so like my recruiter was like, "You can do pretty much whatever you want. So what do you want?" And I was like, he's trying to list off, military intelligence, freaking like air defense, shit like that. And I was like, well, you laugh because you know me, but it's like this dude doesn't know me from Adam, and I've been out digging ditches for $8 an hour for like the last like 6 years, and I'm like, no, dude, give me. And at the time, this is late 09. At the time, or at least this is what he told me at the time. There was a year-long wait for infantry, and a 6-month wait for every other combat arms position. So I'd have to wait 6 months. Now, mind you, this would have been October of 09, getting ready to go into November. And I was like, no, I need to be out of here yesterday. Like, I was going out, when I got home and was staying with my parents, staying with my folks, I was going back out again. Like,
back into the old routine.
Oh, just give me a fucking beer. Give me a fucking beer. You know what I mean? Like, I'm going to fuck the pain away. I'm going to fuck the pain away. You know what I mean? Like, in whatever manner that is, I'm going to fuck the pain away. Cause that's just how that's just how I've always operated. I get real fucking stubborn about shit. I get angry and then I fuck the pain away. You know what I mean? And that's the best way I can put it. That's not, and I'm not trying to sound like some kind of fucking hard ass or whatever. That's just, I was like that when I played Little League. You know, like Little League, I was a pitcher. And when I got to about, I think I was probably 11 or 12. Mm-hmm. Might have even been like 12 or 13. And I was a pitcher because I'm left-handed. And my coach would be like, hey, Campbell, can you pitch today? I was like, I'll pitch every game, coach. You know, like even 12. I was a little shit, dude.
I need videos of little shit Jay Campbell now. Like, I need fucking videos of like 12-year-old fucking Jay saying shit.
Dude, I was a little bulldog, dude. I was a little bulldog, and it was like, and mind you, I took my lumps. I got my ass kicked fucking quite a few times on top of, you know, any of the ass that I kicked. Okay, I promise you, fucking promise you. Like, I took my lumps, but so I told the recruiter, I was like, just give me like something, you know, like give me a labor job basically, and I'll figure it out after I get in. That was like literally the plan going in, was like, get me the fuck out of here with a job that I'm not going to puke every day that I'm fucking there, and I'll figure it out after I'm in. Like I'll do all the door opening on my own. And it's not exactly the way you want to do it. And I'll tell you right now, kids, like, if you're thinking about joining, that is not the way you want to do it. I was in a very different situation in a very different time. Things were a lot different back then, and my life was upside down. So I just said, get me the fucking basic training. I'll figure it out after I get there. And so I enlisted originally as a 91 Lima. That's a construction equipment repairer. That's literally a word, repairer. Like, just call him.
You can quote Jay Campbell on that. Like, it is in the dictionary. If there's one person, anytime there's this misspelt word that I can rely on to fucking call me out on that shit, it is fucking Jay. Like, I've straight up put captions on our other podcast with some shit fucked up in the title or in the wording, and Jay's like, "Hey, that. Dumbass." So
here, I was an avid reader, so if you can see a little bit like what I'm surrounded with here. Can you see in the background there? That's one side. That's the other side. There's two more bookshelves in my living room over there, and there's another bookshelf in my bedroom. I was an avid reader as a child, so I was quite the bibliophile. But yeah, so yeah, well, I always thought it was funny. Like, they got these long titles for like the MOS, like construction equipment repairer, and it's like, dude, just call it what the fuck it is. It's like engineer mechanic. That's what the fuck that MOS is. 91 Lima, engineer mechanic. You're a mechanic attached to the hip with the engineers. That's it.
Yeah.
So that's what I enlisted as.
I'm literally here to fix the vehicles the engineers use.
For the engineers, yes.
Whether it's a forklift or a fucking bulldozer or even their fucking Humvee, because that technically could be classified as fucking construction equipment when that is used to fucking get from point A to point B.
They have boats. They do route clearance with vehicles. You know, like, yeah, that's all the things. All the things.
I went to Leonard Wood. I dealt with the fucking bullshit of the engineers.
Oh yes, yeah. We'll get to that part in a minute. I got to spend a lot of time there. So yeah. So that was I got the MOS, and my ship date was it was like January. It was like mid January. And so we're now probably in November. So now the mission is survive until fucking mid-January. And Joe, I'll tell you, I did, but by the hair of my chinny chin chin. Like, once again, like, Jay got lucky. You know what I mean? Like there were a couple nights I got lucky, like just out fucking rampaging, dude, and like this fucking close. Like, yeah. So anywho, so I go to basic training, Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri. Basic was okay. If it can be said, not necessarily for every day, but I kind of enjoyed it. I liked it a lot. And I knew I was going to be changing my job. Like I knew I was going to like just the stuff we were doing in basic. I was like, this is what I wanted to do. And
yeah, I mean, knowing your mentality, like the way your thought process is and the way you are as a normal, everyday human, that structure that, basic training provides you, it's because I was the same way. Like I went in and I enjoyed it because I like structure to my day to day. Like I like that level of granularity and structure in what I have to do day to day.
Yes. And well, and routines help, discipline helps. And the more disciplined you are, the fucking easier a lot of shit is. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is it comes down to a lot of times to self-discipline. And I have not in my life always had a lot of self-discipline. So when the Army forced me to, I was like, oh fuck yeah, I can do this. I can do it. All you need me to do is freaking right time, right place, right uniform. You know what I mean? And don't get in trouble off duty. I can fucking do this. And I can take it serious. You know what I mean? And I did. Basic was kind of fun. AIT, interestingly enough, your boy here, there was only 2 awards were given for each class during my AIT. One was the leadership. It's called the Leadership Award. And one is Distinguished Honor Graduate. Your boy got both. I've got a pamphlet over here. I've got like an Army scrapbook that my Nana made for me a long time ago. But in that scrapbook is a pamphlet for the graduation ceremony, and it just says Distinguished Honor Graduate, PV2, Jason M. Campbell, Leadership Award, PV2, Jason M. Campbell. You know what I mean?
Old Fluffy. You were a 2, so you'd actually had fucking rank at that point.
I came in as a 2, yes, and that was because of they have like a special thing where you could go in with a little bit more rank if you could do certain things, and they gave me a test and I fucking passed it, so I got to go in as a PB2. So that was my original rank. But I went to my first unit with an AAM because I was the Distinguished Honor Graduate. I got an AAM like before I ever exited training. That was my first AAM was being a Distinguished Honor Graduate. So that was kind of cool. Like.
And for the people that don't know, the AAM, like that's just unheard of, someone coming out of training in general. Usually like during this time frame, we're talking GWAT's already ongoing. We've been in the global war on terror for a couple years. By the time he was going through fucking basic and AIT and graduating, I'd already served my fucking first combat tour and was an E5. So like,
well, we would.
You don't have a lot of soldiers come out of their job training already with more than an Army service ribbon, and
it was Army
National Defense.
It was National Defense. It was Army service, and I think we also got the GWAT.
They started giving the GWAT. Yeah, that would have been about the time they started giving the GWAT because my AIT class and basic was the last group that just got National Defense and Army service.
Yeah.
It was the next rotation in was when they started doing the GWAT service.
Yep. It was during
for completing your schooling.
It was during the surge. Like if you volunteered, if you volunteered during the surge, like you were volunteering to go to war. And that's pretty much what they were considering it like, and that's what the fuck I did. There's a great quote from a movie called the men who stare at goats. Have you ever seen that? Yeah,
great movie.
A great fucking quote from there is I did what a lot of men do when they get their hearts broken. I went to war, and that's basically once again in life I was fucking the pain away. And I was using the Army. I knew the Army was going to use me no matter what. I was using the Army to fuck the pain away. You know what I mean? Like just straight up, like I'm tired, but I can get fucking, I can still get angry and I still have a lot of energy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's what I did. So I got to my first unit with a 4-stack. You know what I mean? Like, and that, like you said, that's kind of relatively unheard of.
Yeah.
You know, to see a PV2 with 4 ribbons on his fucking shit. You know what I mean? Like, but it happens.
I'd have probably been that, you know, squad leader, fucking double and triple checking your fucking paperwork. Like, why does this fucking E2 have a fucking AAM already? Like, what the fuck is this bullshit?
Well, and then this is the funny part. So I did basic and my job training at Fort Leonard Wood. Then my orders come in. I get stationed at Fort Leonard Wood, and not in a training unit. At the time, they had an active duty brigade in ForceCom, what we call ForceCom, and that active duty brigade was what they called the 4th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade. And so I got sent to an engineer battalion in the 4th Maneuver Enhancement Brigade. Hanging out with the engineers and being around engineers is a fucking thing unto itself. So like a lot of my, most, not all, but most of my buddies were fucking engineers. Engineers traditionally and in reality love to fucking party. You know what I mean? So it was, we worked hard, but we fucking played hard. And once again, I was single. I wasn't kind of tied down to anything. Like I didn't have to stay as long as you didn't get in trouble, as long as you didn't get a fucking DUI, as long as you did the right thing, you didn't, you know, like right time, right place, right uniform. It was fucking easy. It was easy. Couple of close calls, sure, but it was easy, especially for a guy who's like now at this point, like I'm coming up on 30 now. So like I've had, you know, almost 2 decades of party experience. You know what I mean? Like under my belt, I knew when the getting was good and when it was time to go home. You know what I mean? So like, I was never afraid to fucking like, yeah, I'm calling a cab. I'm getting out of here. Bye guys. You know what I mean? Like have fun. And that's just it. That was just the way it is. So we had a lot of fun though. And my first unit was a construction outfit. They were 12 Novembers. So that's horizontal construction. A lot of bulldozers, a lot of just different types of like construction equipment, stuff for making roads, you know, fun stuff, but not combat arms yet.
I was about to say, what the fuck is horizontal construction? And then you're like making roads, and I'm like, that fucking makes sense.
If you
turning anything into a parking lot, that's what they did.
Turning anything into an airstrip, like a landing strip, like shit like that. That's 12, that's what 12 Novembers do. And I had fun doing it. And then I'd been in for about altogether a little over a year, but I don't really count training as being in, you know what I mean? So it's like, I'd been in my unit for like 6 to 8 months, pretty high speed, really good at PT, shooting expert on the range. And we were in the field, and my maintenance platoon was doing split operations. So half the platoon would stay in the field with the engineers during the day, and half the platoon would go back to the motor pool and, you know, turn wrenches, you know, on equipment back at the motor pool. That particular day, I was back at the motor pool. I come back out to the field to go sleep, and my team leader, the guy, Sergeant Kesey, he said, "Hey Campbell, I've got some news for you. It might be good news, might be bad news." I was like, "Okay, Sergeant, Roger, Sergeant, like, what's up?"
Like a good little private.
Yeah. He's like, "Well," so mind you, I was in a company, but my battalion was the 94th Engineer Battalion. Okay, so this is he's like, some people from the 5th Engineers, that's the battalion next door. Some people from the 5th Engineers came by looking for volunteers because they have a company deploying soon, and they need a few people from our brigade. And when I say a few, I mean a few. Like a company size element is deploying, and they only needed a few people, like extra hands on deck for their deployment.
Yeah.
My sergeant's like, "So I put your name in," and I was like, "Why would that be bad news, Sergeant?" You know what I mean? I was like, it's like very, I have a very sarcastic and sardonic sense of humor. So it's kind of like, why is that bad news? Like, this is literally, that's what I fucking signed up for. You know what I mean?
And again, we're going to preface, this is the fucking surge. Like,
Yeah.
every young buck coming in has a hard on to get combat time. Like, that was that time of the fucking war.
And and if you were above a certain rank, it was almost unique to see anyone above a certain rank without
a combat patch.
Without a combat patch. Yeah. It was at the time. And mind you, also, I keep up on the news. So at the time, this time frame is going to be early 2011. We were still in Iraq. We were still in Afghanistan, but they were dying down. The wars have been going on for not quite a year, or not quite 10 years at this point. So I was we were getting worried that the wars were going to go away and you're not going to get to deploy. You know what I mean? Like, it just ain't going to happen. So of course I jumped at my fucking chance. Like, I knew I wanted to change my job, but I'd rather go to Afghanistan first. Let me typical Jay. Let me see if I really like it first. Let me see if I really
let me suck the dick of war before I decide to go do a combat arms job.
There you go. Let me see if I've got this. Let me see if I got the stomach for it. Yeah. So I did get selected. I got transferred over to the 5th Engineers along with 4 or 5 other people out of a brigade. By the way, like, for those that don't know, a brigade is thousands of people, and there were plenty of people that were volunteering for this deployment. I promise you. Like, I got selected out of thousands. Along with a few other people, probably 1 or 2 NCOs and several other junior enlisted. Yeah. But this was not, again, this is only a company size element. That's 100, 150 people, depending, you know what I mean? Depending on, MOS and whatever, not a terrible large amount of people. Anywho. Yeah. So I go over to the 5th Engineers. I go to the 509th Clearance Company. I'm there for like 2 weeks. We take 2 weeks of leave. And then after our 2 weeks of leave, we're on a plane to Afghanistan. And that's where I would spend the next year of my life. And I was a mechanic attached to combat engineers doing route clearance in RC West. We were way up north we started in a place called Bala Murghab. And if for any of you like readers out there, there's a book called Level 0 Heroes, and it's written by a guy who was in MARSOC. That entire book takes place at Fob Todd, which is where we were. That's where we ended up. We ended up replacing an Army unit out there, and there was a MARSOC unit that was there when we got there, and they were the ones that replaced the guy that wrote the book. So like, it was like the span of time was like this. Yeah. Like the dude that wrote the book had just left. His replacements were there, and we were replacing an Army element that had been there for a year. I think it was the 82nd, if I'm not mistaken. I think it might have been the 82nd. I get all the patches mixed up because like when you're transferring in and transferring out, it's always different units. Like I get them mixed up. I think it was the 82nd though.
Yeah, so, I'm trying to think back because I was at Bragg around that time.
Yeah, well, it was an experience, and it was very rough. It was very rough living. You know what I mean? Like we had tents, we had basically beds to sleep in, but it was a small fob. It was very isolated. Food was scarce. We had if we ordered parts, for our mail, they had to chopper them in on a Chinook, and all of our supplies got airdropped by a C-17, all. And so like they would airdrop shit onto a fucking like landing zone, and like freaking we had to go out and pick it up like with our trucks and shit, and like get everything loaded on trucks. And we had some fucking fun times at Fob Todd, let me tell you. And it was a hell of an experience, and I got to learn a lot about wrenching that I had no clue of because I'd only been in the Army for fucking like a day. You know what I mean? So like I didn't have a lot of mechanical knowledge. It was literally like I knew how to troubleshoot a little bit. I know how to turn a wrench, and I can replace a part, but don't ask me to like figure out like or know exactly what to do like right away. And that just comes with time. And so I was learning very quickly, and some days were better than others, but overall, we tried to keep our spirits up as much as possible.
Yeah.
We were there for about 6 months, and we changed fobs, and we had to do, I think it was a 5-day push, and we had to go down to a place called Tarancot. And Tarancot was kind of funny because both of these places are in the Bad Geese province. Tarancot was funny because it was a city, or like a little town nestled in the hills. You know, in this part of Western Afghanistan, and the southern part is like all desert. The northern part, there's mountains. We were in the mountains. So that's why we had to have all of our shit like helicoptered in.
Yeah.
At Tarancot had a landing strip, so that was cool. It was a lot more built up. It was a Spanish fob. It was a Spanish fob at the time. And oh, by the way, Fob Todd at the time was owned by the Italians. So we worked with the Italians at Fob Todd when we were at Fob Todd. We get to
from the Italians to the Spaniards.
From the Italians to the Spaniards, yeah. And so this place was built up. It had a maintenance bay, hard stand buildings, you know, decent barracks. You know what I mean?
Burger King.
No.
That was just a joke. That was a joke.
DFAC.
Because, you know, the United States military, we can stand up a fully functioning Burger King in anywhere in the world within 24 hours.
I mean, oh, yes, we can. And in theory, they could have, because they could land a C-130 there. So in theory, I don't know. You probably need a C-17 for the Burger King. I don't know. No, I'm trying to like doing like my Loadmaster math, and I'm like,
he's like over here doing the whole like.
I'm like, yeah. How
they have actually put the container that the Burger King gets constructed out of into this plane.
Correct. But yeah, so you know, we had decent food, you know, like that. Tarancot was
actually had fucking hot meals instead of, you know, eating MREs every fucking other meal.
Yeah, we had breakfast and dinner at Fob Todd, and on certain holidays and special days we'd have a special meal. But there were some meals where it was slim pickings. Like I'm not a lover of fish, and when the Italians wanted to serve nothing but fish, like I didn't eat very well. And so like I'd be grabbing like Nutri-Grain bars and shit, and then I'd be waiting for care packages in the mail, just so I could have something to snack on. Because like when you don't, it's deployment shit. You know what I mean? Where it's very rustic living, and like put it that way, it's very rustic living.
So were you on Fob Todd at like Christmas time?
That would have been Tarancot. I spent Thanksgiving and Christmas at Tarancot.
Okay.
So we had just gotten to Tarancot probably a week or two before Thanksgiving. And then I spent Christmas and New Year's at Tarancot, you know.
The reason I'm asking is because you said, you know, the Italians serving nothing but fish.
On certain days, yeah.
In the Catholic religion, Christmas Eve, you're not allowed to eat red meat or
back to when it was fish night. Now mind you, the Italians have pasta every day, every meal. There's some type of pasta, there's some form of pasta. I like pasta. I had no problem with that. But on the days where it was like fish, they would use fish oil in their pasta. And like I said, I don't like fish. So those were the days that I starved. Like those were the days where like, now, you know, but again, yeah. So where were we at? We were at Tarancot.
Yeah, you made the transition from Todd to Tarancot.
Okay, so let me backtrack real quick. When we were at Fob Todd, within the first 2 weeks of us getting there, one of the Italians was killed in a firefight. So I was present for his, what we call hero ceremony. And that was intense to see and to witness. You know what I mean? You know, like seeing his brothers carrying him to a Chinook and seeing some of them like weeping as they did it. like really touched a nerve in me. You know what I mean? And not long after that, um, still at Fob Todd, we received news that 3 of our brothers who were in a different company in a different part of Afghanistan, different company in the same battalion, so they were in the 5th Engineers as well. They were in a different part of Afghanistan. We lost 3 of them on a different day, and one of them happened to be a friend of mine, like a guy that I hung out with in the barracks, like from time to time. We'd watch football together, yada yada.
Mm-hmm.
That was a gut punch, because that shit hit. And when we were at Tarancot, yeah, the food was definitely better, but the danger was still there. One day, me and one of my fellow privates were walking down this hill because we were like basically on a hillside. So we're walking down this hill to the motor pool, to the maintenance bay, and we were like within probably like 15 meters of the maintenance bay, or of a vehicle sitting on the side of the maintenance bay. And the front gate is probably straight line distance. The front gate is probably 150 meters from us. You know what I'm saying?
Someone drove a fucking bomb into that bitch, didn't they?
They tried to. So right outside the front gate was the landing strip. Like the landing strip basically started outside the front gate, so they could land planes and take off and all the bullshit. So we're walking to the maintenance bay, and all of a sudden we hear ta ta, and then it was like 2 shots, and then it was like 4 guns just fucking opened up, and it was like ba 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 ba, and then you just heard boom, like just huge fucking mega explosion, right? Or at least it sounded and felt like it at the time, right? Like, and me and my fellow private, we just kind of look at each other, and he was like, what are we gonna do? Because mind you, the Spanish were on the gates. It was their fob, so the Spanish were on the gates. He's like, look at, he's like, what are we gonna do? I was like, we're gonna go back up the hill and get Sergeant Z. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, so we walked our asses fucking right back up the hill and like reconnoitered with our element. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
we're gonna go grab our NCO real quick.
Yeah, we're gonna go get a fucking. I
need an adult.
I need an adult. I need somebody to hold my hand right now. You know, and mind you, but by this time we've been on countless fucking route clearance missions, like outside the gates. You know what I mean? Like we're driving around, villages. We're driving around mountain, like hillsides. Desert plain type shit. You know what I mean? You see all kinds of fucking wild shit driving around Afghanistan, dude. Like no shit. And so mind you, at this point, we've been outside the gate. We've been on missions. We hadn't taken a lot of contact. We'd been in the area, by virtue of intelligence. We've been in the area of the Taliban several times, but we hadn't taken contact yet. For the most part, pop shots, but we don't really count pop shots. See, that could be the ANA fucking around. You know what I mean? Like we don't count pop shots. So, anywho,
that's just the Canadians.
Well, it was, how like you can tell if a gun's fired at you, or if just a gun's fired, in general, and it's kind of it's that kind of shit where it's just like that's why we don't really count pop shots, like until they're fucking. It's kind of like because the ANA was present, they were in the area too. They don't give a fuck. They'll fucking fire a goddamn clip into the air for fucking Ramadan. They don't give a fuck. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how they get down. They party, but they party with guns. You know what I'm saying? So
which is stupid, but you
get used to it. You just it's one of those fucking stupid things. You just get fucking used to it. And so anywho, yeah, that shit went off. We go get an adult. A couple weeks pass, it's fucking Christmas, it's fucking New Year's, which by the way, I got to party with the Spanish and the Italians back on Fob Todd. I got to party with the Italians like once. I got to party with the Spanish twice. So I do get to say, and now that it's been fucking like not quite, it's been like what's 2011? It's been almost 15 years. It's been almost 15 years. I can say like I drank a little bit in Afghanistan a couple times. You know what I mean? But I do get to say I drank alcohol in Afghanistan a few times. So that's pretty cool, right?
I mean, and the thing is for the audience, not all the troops can even say that, because
it's forced sobriety. It's forced sobriety.
It's forced sobriety for U.S. troops.
Yes.
Now, our foreign allies, we can't control whether they bring or do not bring, or whatnot.
Plenty of
Usually,
people.
if you're on a U.S. controlled fob, there's no alcohol. Period.
Basically,
Because that's where we can control, even if our foreign allies have it or not.
mm-hmm.
However,
They get it
foreign fobs.
They find ways to get it in. They're not like the front gate is not going to go through the UK's entire truck every time.
Yeah.
When they're going out on mission, fucking twice a day.
My first Christmas in Iraq was fucking drinking with the Brits on a US fob. So
thank you, because it's like they can go out on mission, do a link up with some of their boys, get a couple fucking cases. And when they roll back fucking through the gates, fucking now they magically have some brujas, like back on base.
Mission.
Yeah, and those missions do exist too. But no, I got to party with the Spanish a couple times. So now it's a little bit after January. I get to go on leave because it was a year-long deployment. So I go home. I flew back to Kansas City, where by that time my parents had both moved back to Kansas City to help take care of the grandparents and stuff like that. So they were here. So I flew back to Kansas City, spent a week there, flew to Tucson, spent a couple days in Tucson, and then flew back to Kansas City before flying back to Afghanistan. So now I'm in like round 2 of my deployment. And then we changed fobs again. We went to a place called Camp Stone, which is outside of Herat. It's a big city in Afghanistan, and it's close to the Iranian border. So we go down to Camp Stone. We moved down to Camp Stone. This is an American fob. So first we had the Italians, then we had the Spanish. Now we're on an American fob. And we do a shitload of missions, around Herat. I get to say I spent an overnight, well, more than one, but I get to say I spent a couple of overnights on this tiny, Joe, isolated ass fob, like less than 3 miles from the Iranian border. Do you want to know who the guards were? I shit you not. You want to know who
Iranians?
Gurkhas. No shit, Gurkhas. Like every one of the guards was a former Gurkha, or they were Gurkhas, like straight up, like, and I get like, and we did one mission one day where we drove about as close to the border as we could get before we turned around. And I remember I have a picture of it somewhere if I could ever find wherever the fuck the picture is. And you can see in the foreground there's a water tower, and it's painted with the Afghanistan flag tricolor. And in the distant like back, you can see a water tower painted with the Iranian tricolor. And it was like that's how close we got to Iran. Like that's how close we were. Like, reach out and touch it. You know what I'm saying?
Imagine the international incidents if a bullet flew over the border into fucking somebody.
Right. So, long story short, we stay at Camp Stone for the remainder of the deployment. We come home, go back to Fort Leonard Wood. Shit's cool. You know what I mean? That was very nice going, being home again. And that's where like I had 30 days of leave. And mind you, I still very much enjoyed the Army, but the majority of my experience in the Army now has been Afghanistan and not garrison. I had not really yet experienced garrison Army because I was only in garrison Army for
a couple months.
Well, it was less than a year. It was less than a year. So I by this point, I've spent more time in Afghanistan than I spent in garrison. Put it that way, outside of training. So there was some, I had a rough time towards the end of the deployment, and I remember questioning whether or not I wanted to stay in. And so I took 30 days of leave. I did this like all-American road trip. And I went to all the way to the fucking East Coast, which I've never been to the East Coast. I drove from Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri to fucking Boston, Massachusetts.
The armpit of the East Coast. You choose the armpit of the East Coast.
Dude, fuck that. Boston was the shit, dude. Anyways, then I went from Boston to DC, spent a couple days in DC, fucking partied there.
Hey, that's the true armpit of the East Coast.
Anywho,
I stand corrected.
I wanted to see our nation's capital. You know what I mean? So, I go to DC, and then I start driving back to Kansas City, and I drove all the way across Tennessee, and then cut up and like and cut across, spend a night in St. Louis, I spent a night in Knoxville. I spent a night in St. Louis. And then I got back to Kansas City, visited my homies in Tucson. I took a plane out to Tucson, visited the homies, and then I flew back, and then I was back at Fort Leonard Wood. And this is where it was kind of like, all right, gut check. Like, what do you want to do? And I got transferred to, so the combat engineers are 12 Bravos. I got transferred to a 12 Charlie unit. And this is kind of like where I found my fire. Like, this unit was 12 Charlies are like the bridge builders. So they have boats, they have pontoons. They have all kinds of cool shit. I'm not gonna lie, they have all kinds of cool shit. And
they're the guys walking into places with TNT and blowing it up.
And they have explosives. I was just about to say, and they have explosives. They've got all this fucking cool shit, and they've got explosives. So like, I started having like fun again in the Army. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I started having, because like by the end of a year in Afghanistan, it's not so fun. You know what I mean? Like, you start getting you start getting complacent. You know what I mean? You start, fuck, I can't wait for this mission to be over. That kind of shit, where it's like, that's not the mentality you need to be in. You know what I mean? But I started having fun again in this unit, and it was great. I spent like almost the next 2 years there, but that's when during that time, I decided I was going to re-enlist, and I was going to re-enlist to change my MOS. And I selected 11 Bravo infantry, and I had to wait almost a year after I re-enlisted. They're like, we can re-enlist you and you will definitely have a slot at the school, but but you're going to have
it's going to take us at least 12 months to get you there.
Yeah, basically. And that was it. So I had to spend basically an extra year in this unit, but it gave me time to kind of rededicate and refocus myself. Mind you, during this time, I have now gotten married, and I have a baby girl that I've adopted, and then I've got one on the way. You know what I mean? So like, we were very quickly making a family. You know what I mean? And so I told my wife at the time, I said, you do realize if you get pregnant around a certain time, when I have to go to Fort Benning to do my retraining to become an infantryman, there's a good chance I might miss the birth of that child. And she's like, yeah, I know. And I said, okay. You know what I mean? Like, that's it. And that's exactly what happened. That's literally what happened. Like,
pretty much, as long as we have a mutual understanding, this possibility.
Yeah.
There's this possibility. So
I made a couple of lifelong friends, maybe more than a couple, but several lifelong friends at the very first unit I was in. Many lifelong friends in the platoon I was attached to, doing route clearance. And then at this unit that I spent 2 years in, I made many more. So basically, the vast majority of like my lifelong Army friends will have come from like Fort Leonard Wood and my time there as a mechanic. Because by the time I got through infantry training, I'm now, a father of 2 children, 2 beautiful daughters. But I had to repurpose myself as an infantryman and not a mechanic. And not only that, I had to learn the trade and the skills of an infantryman very, very quickly.
Yeah,
because I was playing catch up at this point. I've been in the Army for 5 years. I'm an E4. I'm a specialist, but I'm a very seasoned and salty specialist. And
that's actually where my question was going. Was, so when you reclassed, what rank were you at that point? Like, had you made it to E5 yet? Were you in E4 promotable to E5 at least? Or
no, I left. I had done WLC. I had been to the board. I had been to the board twice, and this was part of my decision making process. Part of me was like, if I pass the board, do I want to stay as a mechanic? That was like that question was that wasn't. I knew I could be a good infantryman, but that was a hanging question. Like, if you pass the board, and you make sergeant, that's going to be even harder if you reclass. Because the rank I left Fort Leonard Wood actually was corporal. I did make corporal, believe it or not, like in my time in service, like, which not everybody gets to do. You know what I mean? But I'd gone to the board twice, but I got no-go'd both times. One time it was like I messed up the NCO creed, the creed of the non-commissioned officer, and I was immediately kicked out. That was my first time at the board. And then the second,
understandable.
And then the second time, I studied my ass off, and I felt like they were playing stump the chump with me, and they didn't like my responses to certain questions or how, because like there was one guy kept asking this question. He's like, you don't know? And I was like, no, Sergeant, I don't know. Like no. And he just kept like on and on. Like, how can you not know that? Like, I'm like, Sergeant, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to? He's like, they're basically
How
like,
do you not know that? Because it wasn't in any of the fucking training materials, Sergeant.
It's not even that. It was a very obscure reference, and I think it was more of a test to see how I'd respond to somebody kind of like poking them in the chest. And that's kind of like that's I guess that's one way of doing it in the board, if that's how you want to do it in the board. But kind of irrelevant to that. So I got no-go twice. That was really the end of what I considered me being a mechanic. I still had time to go, but I had not yet reenlisted to become an infantryman at that second round. So I was kind of like, all right, motherfuckers, like I'm out. Like I'm going over here. You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I did. But I did leave Fort Leonard Wood as a corporal, but I was not allowed to take that rank to Benning. I had to go back to specialist at Benning for my retraining. Left Fort Leonard Wood with a lot of good memories, a lot of good experiences. Some fucking crazy shit happened. Like, you know what I mean? Like just all the stories you can have in about 5 years in the Army. You know what I mean? And so I go to Benning, do my retraining. That was going back to basic training. That was an experience unto itself, but I was very, very proud to do it. And I was very, very proud to be there. And go ahead.
So you had to redo basic training and not just go to infantry school. Is that because you went 11 Bravo?
No, I wasn't supposed to. I was on the contract. The way I remember it reading, I was supposed to be there for 4 to 5 weeks. So we'll call it 5 to 6, just doing the Army.
So just the infantry OSIT part of it, not the basic part.
Basically the OSIT part, not the basic part. When I got to Benning, due to lack of bunk space, right? Freaking due to lack of bunk space, me and a few other people got thrown into week 3. So they were just finishing red phase. So I did get to redo basic training with a bunch of 18-year-old kids. I was reminding you here at this point, this is 2014. I'm 33 years old. When I went to basic the first time, I was older, but I wasn't the oldest person. This time in this platoon, I was by far the oldest, like by far. Like I think the next closest to me was like 26. So like, and then it rapidly went down from the majority of them were fresh out of high school. And this class started in, I think, August. So they were, because like I went there, like they started in July. I got there in August. So these guys, a lot of these kids were like had just graduated high school, literally. Mm-hmm. And now I'm fucking, old man Campbell, fucking coming in as a reclass, and we get thrown. Me and another guy got thrown in to week 3 with them. You know what I mean? And we stayed with them for the remainder of OSIT. So I did 11 out of 14 weeks of OSIT retraining at Fort Benning, and that was a hell of an experience. And I can say it was worse than the first time in every way.
I mean, it was fucking Benning, so of course it wasn't even
that. A lot of this, a lot of the stuff was the same. It wasn't physically harder. It was dealing with fucking children. You know what I mean? Like, but it was
that too.
It gave me great experience for when I would become an NCO. You know what I mean? Like dealing with kids fucking straight out of fucking high school.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Even when, like you said, like even when you're 20, 22, you're still pretty wet behind the ears. You are still pretty fucking wet behind the ears. I feel like I'm still wet behind the ears right now, and I'm fucking 44. You know what I mean? Like
the thing is, we learn we learn every damn day that we're fucking sitting here breathing on this planet.
Basically,
It's no matter how old we are, we're learning something new every day. And if
what
you're
what
not learning something new, you're dead. I'm sorry. That's,
what's what's that country song? Life's a dance. You learn as you go. Sometimes you
yeah.
lead, sometimes you follow. Like that's it. Like that's
Because I mean, you're talking at this point, you're 33,
33. I
you're a
have a
corporal,
I
you've
have a
got
new
one combat tour under your belt,
got a new
you're
baby. Got a new baby.
you're
Like
shoved into a fucking, bay with fucking 18-year-olds that had just like literally fresh baby faced out of freaking high school.
oh, and when I say like I missed the birth of my child, like we missed it by like this much. By
Yeah.
like this because like the way my orders fell, like she was born on August 19th. I think I was due to report to Benning like right at the tail end of August. Like right at the tail end of August. So like it was like it was that close. So like my wife at the time and my daughter had gone back to where she grew up so she could have the baby there. And then I went back to Fort Leonard Wood to clear Fort Leonard Wood, clear our house, you know what I mean, of our household goods, blah 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 blah, you know what I mean, and get all the army crap done. And that's kind of how that ended up. But I ended up at Fort Benning for 11 weeks, and that was not a very pleasant phone call with my wife at the time, telling her that I was going to be there until
Longer than
way
you
long,
were supposed to be.
like basically like twice as long, basically twice as long, like at a minimum. And so like was not a pleasant phone call, but anywho, it was a hell of an experience. I will say one of the proudest moments of my life to this day is towards the end of OSUT. You march through the infantry gates, and it is very special and it's very dear to my heart. And that night, standing in front of those gates, like I couldn't hold it in. Like it was like I cried the entire time, like just to myself. You know what I mean? Like I wasn't like falling all over the ground or anything, but like I couldn't hold it in for all the shit that had happened in my life, all the shit that had happened before, and then I'd already spent a year in Afghanistan, had some fucking rough patches during that shit. You know what I mean? The army will take it out of you. The army will take it out of you.
Oh yeah.
But standing in front of those gates was like one of the most like invigorating experiences of my life. Like it was holy. It was spiritual. Does that make sense? Like that's about as close to like spirituality as like I can probably get right now. Is like standing in front of and like marching into the infantry gates. Like that was some fucking like kings and giants of this earth had fucking walked through those same gates. You know what I mean? Like it was very, very special. And so flash forward about a month, I land at Fort Carson. It's December. And so we're like, I get there, like we're literally about to go on Christmas leave. They're standing up a battalion. The battalion's like a skeleton crew, basically. It's 141 infantry. At the time it was 4th Brigade. It later reflagged to it's now 2nd Brigade. But I was in 141 infantry, and I got there like right before block leave. So everyone's getting ready to go on leave anyways. So I sign in, do my thing. We have a few PT sessions or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Bullshit. We go on leave, come back in January, and we start going through the motions. And one day, I want to say it was my platoon sergeant at the time, who was also acting first sergeant, by the way. Like, because like they were standing the battalion up. They like people were still coming in. People were still filling the slots. And my platoon sergeant's like, "Have you been to WLC?" And I was like, "Roger, Sergeant." He's like, "You don't have any flags?" I was like, "No, Sergeant." And he's like, "Did you ever go to the board when you're at Fort Leonard Wood?" I was like, "Actually, yes. Like I've been twice." You know what I mean? Like yeah, Roger. He's like, "All right, you're going to the board next month." And I was okay. So for our non-army and our non-military people out there, like this is like, put it this way: everyone that I asked questions to when I asked them about reclassing the infantry had the same response. Expect to wait a minimum of 6 months to a year before they will even let you touch the board. They won't even let you touch the board. like until they have seen you for a good amount of time. Like, and if you want to go in 6 months, you better be fucking good. You better be.
I mean, that was even our golden rule over in the MP Corps. Any new guys that came in that reclassed from somewhere else, we wanted them, out doing patrols, out, in the field with us for 6 months to a year before we would send them to the board.
Yeah, you want to watch because you don't want a shitbag fucking leader.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's so you got to watch them for a while. So anywho, like you're going to the board like next month. I was like, okay, Roger, Roger that. So long story short, I get to the board in February and I fucking nailed it. And they gave me a go. So it's really funny as a mechanic. I got basically no-go'd twice at the board, and in the infantry, they were like, come on in, water's warm. Like,
here you are, fresh blue cord and disc.
Oh, dude.
And they're like, just jump on into the hot tub. You don't need no swimsuit. Strip down naked.
This is where it got intimidating because now I've put on stripes, and I'm like, I have less time in the infantry than like damn near anyone there, including the privates. You know what I mean? Like including the privates. So it's like now
there's a couple privates that you might have the same amount of time as, but that's just because they got there at the same time as you. But
in essence, and so you want to talk about getting your feet put to the fire and like having to learn fucking quick. Like that was. So what happened was I happened to land in this unit. The battalion got filled, so we now have a full battalion. And we began a training cycle, a training rotation. And basically the rotation takes the duration of the calendar year. Okay. And we were on the chart to deploy to Afghanistan the following year. So I have now joined the infantry, and I'm going to be spending basically a year doing nothing but ranges, field, schoolhouses. You know what I mean? Like just shit that you do in the regular day-to-day army.
Yeah.
But I've also now made fucking sergeant. I'm Sergeant Campbell now. I'm not fucking. I don't get any time to learn. It's like you're in charge. Like go.
Like
I'm like
you're new here, but here tell these other 6 people what to do, how to do it, and when to do it.
Here's a big heavy rock. I want you to hold this rock in your hand and swim across that pool. Like sink or swim, sink or fucking swim. And thankfully, like I had a lot of tenacity at the time. So like I swam very well. And like
thankfully he's stubborn as a mule.
I want to be very clear here. I made a lot of mistakes, and there was a lot of learning and growing. And sometimes I had to ask the specialist, like, what does this mean? Like, what is this? Because I had never seen shit like that before. You know what I mean? Like, so like, I never minded having to ask for help. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
If I have a question about something and I don't understand, I want to make sure that I do understand so that it doesn't come up in the wrong moment. Because I'd already seen shit like that in Afghanistan. You know, when you talk about going to war, everything is on the line every fucking day. Everything. Like, yeah. You're pushing all the poker chips to the middle of the table every time you fucking wake up. And sometimes when you're not awake. You know what I mean? Like literally. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like you got to take it fucking seriously.
And the thing is, being in a leadership position, like leadership in general, like part of that is making mistakes and learning from them. Because you're never going to be a proper leader if you're not making mistakes. Because if there's nothing for you to learn from,
correct.
What are you doing?
That was correct.
You're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs. I'm sorry if you're not messing up somewhere along the way during your leadership journey.
You're doing something wrong.
You're doing something wrong, and that something wrong is most likely doing nothing.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people hear, the term Fort Leonard Wood and they cringe because it's primarily a training base. I got to spend, 4 years there outside of training, but by virtue of being on a training post, I learned the rules. I got to see good NCOs. I got to see bad NCOs. You know what I mean? I got to see NCOs that I was like, if I'm ever a sergeant and I turn into that guy, I'm fucking getting out. I'm like I'm fucking leaving. You know what I mean? Like I'll get out of the Army before I ever turn into that guy. So yeah, there was what I would call like a little bit of pressure to perform, but I did make some mistakes, and I did have to learn. And there were, you know, terms that the infantry uses that I'd never heard before. I had to plus up on a lot of fucking knowledge, and I had to do it, and I had to do it fast because again, we're training for a year in preparation to turn around and go to Afghanistan the following year. So like it's already in the works. It's happening. You know, once again, it's happening. And that's kind of what we did. And so I end up in 2016, I ended up that would have been 2015 would have been like the training year, right? With Sergeant Campbell. 2016, I land back in Afghanistan, this time at Kandahar for 9 months. Oh yeah. By the way, there was no drinking this time. No drinking. 9 months straight. No drinking. Dunskies, bro. Like there were some good aspects of being at Kandahar, but there was also some very not fun ones. Just not fucking. And by the way, this was not Kandahar at the height. This was not Kandahar with like when I was there the first time, because we went to Kandahar for a few days on my first tour, flying in and flying out, getting to our fobs and back from our fobs at the end. So I saw the boardwalk when it was like at its peak. It had a fucking TGI Fridays. It had a fucking sit down TGI Fridays. That goddamn boardwalk, dude. Like you can look up pictures of this shit on the internet. I'm not joking.
Well, again, you're talking Kandahar, not during the peak. I was there during the fucking peak.
Yeah. So that like when it was like an indoor bazaar that surrounded like a soccer field. Yeah. So like if you would walk into it, you couldn't see out. It was like going to like a Renaissance fucking festival. You know what I mean? There were shops. There was shit you could buy. There was fucking 14 different kinds of fucking food. You know, just all kinds of fucking mad shit. Like it was crazy. It was fucking crazy. You know, but it was cool. 2016, there was I think a pizza shop, an ice cream shop, a donut shop, the soccer field, and you could see all the way through it. Like all the shit had been removed from the outside. So it was kind of like a skeleton of what it used to be. Like, you know what I mean? Like the stage was still there. They still had the stage in the one corner, but it was very, desolate because the Kandahar was it's what we call de-scoping. So that we were making the footprint smaller and smaller. So I spent 9 months in fucking Kandahar. and that's what I did. Learned a lot. Had some fucking horrifically bad days. Like I was in what they call a weapons company, and so as an E5, I was already a squad leader. So my first NCOER, I was a squad leader as an E5 pay grade sergeant, which it's not necessarily unheard of. But it's not exactly common either. Usually you got to be staff sergeant, at least at the time. Usually you'd have to be a staff sergeant to be a squad leader. So I did a deployment. Like training and a deployment as a squad leader. So yeah. my first NCOERs were as a squad leader.
Well, and you're also talking at this time, getting to your first infantry unit after reclassing. Mm-hmm. That infantry unit is standing up, getting ready to go over. So yeah. You're a fresh, out of OSIT E4 who's got a combat tour under your belt, who's told, hey, have you been to the board? You say yes twice. Then your sergeant's like, well, we're going to send you to the board and, within the month. You make E5 record-breaking time for just reclassing.
That's pretty, it's not.
And then now you're over in fucking Kandahar during the stand down during the beginning of the stand down of the Afghanistan side of the fucking war.
That was the preparation. Things were in place but it was still, it still got hot sometimes. And there were still, we did some really cool shit on that deployment. I'm really proud of the guys that I was with, and I got to see some bad motherfuckers like in action. And I love that aspect of it. I remember coming back from Afghanistan the first time, really all I wanted to do was go back.
Yeah.
And I got my wish. And some days are better than others. I had some very, very low morale days out there. Like I worked, when we landed, I worked for 189 days straight out of 9 months before I got my first full day off. Like wake up in the morning and you're not doing shit until you wake up tomorrow. Like 189 days, like over 6 months.
Yeah, and that's like 6 months of that fucking deployment.
Yeah, like we were like on the ass end getting ready to fucking start getting ready to come home before I got a day off. And it towards the end of that, like it started taking a toll. I'm not gonna lie, like there were some very low morale days. But again, we're in the infantry, so I can just fucking act pissed off and everybody will leave me the fuck alone. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like 6 of one, half dozen of another, but we'll fucking make it in the end. You know what I mean? Like we'll make it in the end.
I get to just live in my head because I'm infantry. So as long as I look mad, nobody's going to fuck with me.
In essence, I mean, I obviously still have people that I answer to. I still have to try to be the best example I can be to my squad. And that takes a lot of time and a lot of patience, a lot of fucking patience. Because we had a couple of very rough days, not a lot, but we had a couple of very rough days on that deployment, and that shit taxes you as a leader. That shit taxes you. Mm-hmm. Like that'll take a chunk of your soul. That will take a literal chunk of your soul, whatever's left of it.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the big thing for the viewers out there that might not have the knowledge of the military to that degree, that you're learning these things as we talk about them. Being in that leadership position, in that NCO position, especially as blue in the collar or green in the collar as Jay was at the time,
as an infantryman,
and you're going back into a combat zone. But at this point, it's during the beginning of our stand down.
We were starting
to stand down from the war in Afghanistan. So one of the things is the tours of the combat tours weren't even what they were as far as lengthwise. At that point, you said it was a 9 month tour. Mm-hmm. And when you're stuck over there, me coming from experience during height era and being an NCO and being over there, the hardest days are the days you lose those that serve under you. It's inevitable. It's going to happen to most NCOs, but it does take a toll on everybody, no matter what our training is. There's no way to prevent that.
Well, and again, I'm reminded that I felt very fortunate that I grew up at Fort Leonard Wood as a soldier, especially coming back from my deployment, because I got to get really good at a lot of the small things. And so once I became an NCO, even on the bad days, I was like, fuck it, take a deep breath. We'll fucking try again tomorrow. You know what I mean? And that's all you can do. That's really all we had a fucking shit day. We'll fucking try again tomorrow. But I've also become, because of the previous training cycle that I'd gone through, you get to see a lot in training. And I got to see how other people did their shit. Some of my battle brothers to my left and my right as squad leaders, my platoon sergeant, other platoon sergeants in different companies, other squad leaders in different platoons in different companies, and you get this like collective knowledge. And so by the time you're in Afghanistan, it's like training to play a fucking football game. And so by the time you get to Afghanistan, the only difference is you're playing the game. Now we're in the fucking game. We're going on patrols. Fucking 6 days a week. Day seven is maintenance day at the motor pool. You know what I mean? Like that's the reality. And I got good at it. I wouldn't say I was the best squad leader in our platoon, but I was extremely competent. And so I take everything very seriously. Like in the regards of like when I was in the Army, I took everything very, very seriously. Yes, I did my fair share of partying when I was single, but once I got married and I had kids, Like I kind of stopped. I didn't go out hardly ever.
Back
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Oh, I was living and breathing the infantry. I was not going out on the week. I was not going out on the weekends. I was fucking spending time with my family and thinking about whatever we had to do on fucking Monday, whether it was a fucking field exercise, going to a range, X, Y, or Z. Like I was living and breathing the infantry. And when you do that in repetition, you start getting, you sink or swim. You get good at it or you don't. So
Yeah.
we come home. We're in 2017 now, right back into another training cycle. And at some point, I'm trying to think, it was late spring or early summer. My squad leader, because at this, now that I've gone, I switched companies when I got back. So now instead of being in a weapons company, I'm in a line unit. Like, and we were light infantry battalion.
Yeah.
So now I'm on the line. So even as an E5, I'm no longer a squad leader. Now I'm a team leader. So I was a team leader for 3 or 4 months, whatever. I think it was most of the year, but at some point, it might've been the summer. At some point in the summer, my squad leader had to freaking bounce and go to a school or some shit. And they were like, and he requested that I step up as squad leader in his place. Okay. So I did. And we're going in towards the end of the training cycle. I get orders to go to ALC, which is a leadership school back at Fort Benning. It's a 45 day long school. Okay. So a month and a half. And do you want to know when my ALC got scheduled at the same time as when my company was going to JRTC to finish the training cycle? So when I did my previous training cycle, I went to NTC for a month. I got to do the NTC thing. This time we were going to JRTC, except yours truly got to go to fucking Fort Benning and drink beer for 45 days and just pass the schoolhouse. You know what I mean? So like I took ALC very seriously. I got good grades, but I would be lying if I didn't say I did what I had to. And I took a knee. Because at that point, I've been almost 3 years straight with no break. You know what I mean? Like just training cycle, deploy, training cycle. Oh, and by the way, we're going back to Afghanistan next year, so it's already coming. Like once again, it's already coming. Like back to back training cycles and deployments. So when I was at Fort Benning for ALC, I enjoyed Yingling for the first time, and I enjoyed it so much I drank it the whole time. You know what I mean? Like.
So, you hit ALC, you go back to your unit, that year passed, you go on this time, it's your third tour. You're back to Afghanistan, correct?
Yeah. And then, at this point, I became promoted to staff sergeant.
Yeah. So you're an E6.
Now they have to fucking put me in charge of a squad, basically. So now I've once again become a squad leader in preparations to go on a deployment. So that all happened between I graduated ALC in December. Our numbers immediately came up. We promoted on January 1st, but we had to wait to do the ceremony until everybody got back from block leave. You know what I mean? Because technically my date of rank is 1 January 2018 for staff sergeant, but the reality was it was probably like January 14th. You know what I mean? Like,
well, that was when you officially got it pinned on you. Your paycheck reflected January 1st.
Correct. Yeah. And it was, and one of the sergeants in my platoon in Afghanistan, guy I looked up to tremendously. He's now a sergeant first class. He's also at Carson. So I called him, and he's the one that actually pinned staff sergeant on me. And that was a real thrill to have, the passing of the torch, basically, from my time at Fort Leonard Wood to my time at Fort Carson. You know what I mean? And that meant a lot to me. So he was a great man.
You get pinned, staff sergeant, you go back to Afghanistan.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously that, comes and goes, does its thing. Trying to fast track here a little bit.
Okay. I just, we went to Helmand. I spent 9 months in Helmand province. That was same. Same
Fuck
shit.
that.
Dude, SSDD, dude, same shit, different day. It was a little bit of a different mission. The mission set was different, but this time the entire battalion's with us. So we're with our entire battalion. Like
I heard horror stories of Helmand Province.
Yeah, it was horrific. But we were at a place called Camp Stone, which previously was primarily a Marine base. But for us, like the Army had, by this point, it was 2018. The Army had taken it over. So I spent 9 months at Camp Stone in Helmand Province. I think it's in Garmsur district. It's in kind of like the southern region of Helmand, but I think it's Garmsur. I could be wrong. Look up Camp Stone. Camp Stone is where I was at. Anywho, now we come back. Because yeah, it was basically just another deployment. Now we come back. It's been 4 fucking years since I reclassed, and it went by that fast. I blinked. I had 2 beautiful daughters. One at the time was 3, and the other was a year, barely born. I blinked my eyes, and now I have a 4-year-old and a 7-year-old. You know what I mean? And it's like, and it happened that fast. And so I had spent a considerable amount of time away from my family, away from my children. Thankfully, by hook or crook, and by a stroke of luck, and probably because I was very competent at my job and did my hardest and my best every day. One of our company first sergeant became it's not the commandant, but the guy below the commandant. And goddamn, I can't remember all the terms, dude. Is like freaking vice commandant or freaking, it's like whatever. But he was like the number 2 at BLC or WLC at Fort Carson. He became the number 2. He asked me if I was interested in coming to basically try out to be an instructor at WLC. Okay. And it wasn't called, I don't think it was called WLC anymore. I don't think it's called WLC anymore. I've only been out for a few years, but like those last few years in the Army get a little fuzzy. Cause like, I went and I tried out, and I had to go through an instructor's course, and then I became an instructor. Oh, it's BLC now. Sorry. It's BLC.
Yeah, I was going to say it's BLC now.
Thank you. BLC. God damn it.
Because it was WLC now, which was Warrior Leader course. Now it's Basic Leaders course.
And that's what I went through. And then it was BNOC before that, and whatever the fuck, all the different fucking, it gets fucking confusing. Anyways, so I do my interview. That goes well. I go through the instructor's course. I pass that. Now I get to become an instructor at BLC. So now like I'm teaching courses to students in the, Army students who are coming through, to give them the skills to become an NCO. Yeah. And I've got 3 combat deployments under my belt, extremely seasoned, extremely salty, but also very, I like seeing people do well. You know what I mean? I really like people, other people inspire me a lot. So I like seeing them do well. So I try to give as much advice and instruction as I could to prepare them for what it was going to be like when you put the fucking stripes on, because it's goddamn serious every fucking day. Like you have to take every day seriously. If you don't, not only will you fail yourself, you're going to fail the people that are depending on you, which is the ones you're in charge of. It's a very, very serious thing to be a leader in the military, whether officer or non-commissioned officer. It's very, very, it's a matter of life and death. And so, my job was basically to
teach people to be able to
train them in like this course is a required course in the Army. You have to go through this course before you become a sergeant. So a lot of the, you're talking like their careers are depending on it. In 2018, were you in 2018? Because I was.
No. Okay. Yeah. 2018, we're talking different time, because I was field promoted to E5, and then it was like
that shit was gone.
A year fucking later was when I went to WLC. So
I got promoted to specialist in Afghanistan, but their field promotions were gone by then. Field promotions on my first deployment, field promotions were gone. Like those don't exist. Like
yeah, you're talking 2011. I was field promoted in 2009. So like you were going through basic when
I was a year out of basic, And
it was
that's
8 or 9, something like that.
But
I
yes.
digress.
So anyway, I'm doing the instructor thing, and I did very well. Had a wonderful time. I was very fortunate. I was once again I was able to kind of take a knee and like drink water. Like I got a break. I got after four fucking years, I got a break, and I took my job very seriously. But being an instructor is a lot more structured and a lot more 9 to 5 than being on a line unit. In a line unit, like I have to be. I lived about 40 minutes away from base. I would have to be up in the morning at like 4 a.m, get dressed, start driving so that I could be there before anybody else. Cause that was like my fucking job, to be there before fucking anybody else. Like if one of my soldiers made it there before me, like that was fucking bad news. You know what I mean? Like didn't happen very often. So, but at BLC, it was a lot more 9 to 5. You knew when you were working, you knew when you weren't. I knew which classes I was teaching that day, or if I wasn't teaching that class this month. There's a whole curriculum, you know what I mean, that we had to go through. And some cycles I would teach this class, other cycles another one of the instructors wanted to teach that class. So okay, fuck it, you take it. You know what I mean? Like whatever. But it was a lot easier to manage life. Around this time, after becoming an instructor, I started not feeling good and like not understanding why. And there was this general malaise in my life. And mind you, like I'm going through a second divorce now. So I have two small children still. Like my daughters are amazing, both of them. But I have 2 children. I'm going through a second divorce. I'm back from a 3rd deployment, and I'm also an instructor at the NCO Academy. And I'm trying to keep all this shit together. So probably no wonder, some of the edges started to fucking like rub a little raw. You know what I mean?
The strand started to come undone.
Yeah. So I took it upon myself. I started going to behavioral health and started seeing a therapist. And I got orders. I think I'd been there about a year. So I got there in 2019. Yeah, I'd been there about a year. I got orders to be a drill sergeant. Ooh. And this is like right around the time of the coronavirus started creeping up. Okay. This is like, so I will never forget the day, like we got the official call. We were in class and they evacuated the building and they were like, everyone's going home. They gave everyone in that class cycle, they literally gave everyone in that class cycle their fucking graduation slips. Like if you were still fucking in that school that day, we only had like I think we had like 3 or 4 days to graduation, but there were still a couple of ways you might not graduate, like depending on.
They just said fuck it because of
like print off the fucking certificates, everyone out of the fucking building, like ASAP, like now, yesterday.
You got 15 minutes, fucking get it done.
And that was an extremely interesting experience going through Corona as an instructor, because we spent the next, I don't think, aside from like a couple of isolated times, I don't think we went back to work for 2 months. Basically got a 2-month we started doing classes online eventually. But it took like a month to get into that shit. Like it took like a whole ass fucking month to get into that shit. Like or more. And then it was like, and mind you, Corona's still going on. It's like, this is during the pandemic. So like it's getting worse every month. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. And so like, there were a lot of questions of like, can we be in person with masks? Should we just go fucking virtual? Which we ended up going fucking virtual, like just completely virtual for like several months. I'm on drill sergeant orders. I go through my divorce. It's 2020. Mm-hmm. And I basically, for lack of a better term, like it's my personal life, so I don't like talking about it that much, but for lack of a better term, I became a single dad for a time. I'm on drill sergeant orders. I had to decline my drill sergeant orders. And when you, it's called a DEC statement, a declination of intent to reenlist. I still had another 2, like at least 1 or 2 reenlistments I could have done. At this point, I had reenlisted 4 times, at least 4 times.
Is your
I was only at,
13.
at that time, I was only at about 10 years time in grade or time in service, excuse me, time in service. So I've got about 10 years time in service. So I still had a couple years and possibly at least one, if not two reenlistments I could have done.
Yeah.
Before I had to go, what they call indefinite, which means you're stuck until 20 years. Right. But so I had to decline to reenlist. So I knew I was getting out. I had reenlisted in Afghanistan in Helmand. And so my projected ETS date at that point became October of 2021. So I basically had from October, and I had from that point until October of 2021, and that was when I was going to get out. And so now we're doing classes virtually. I get to chill at my house down in Pueblo and play with my kids and take them to school and pick them up and just do classes virtually. And I was, in a way, I was fortunate because it gave me a lot more time with my kids. And I was, as kind of rough as that time of my life, was, like we made a lot of like good memories, put it that way. We made a lot of good memories. And so that was kind of a pleasant time for me, at least. And then I got out in October of 21. And then in December of 21, me and the girls, my daughters moved back out here to Kansas City. Cause this was where I always wanted to call home. Like I was born here. My family's from here. And this is just where I've always considered home, even though I spent 25 years in Tucson, and this is no disrespect to Tucson at all. I'm very, very proud to cut my teeth in Tucson. I don't think I'd be the man I am today if I hadn't grown up in Tucson. You know what I mean? Growing up, if I had grown up out here, my temperament might be the same, but I would be a very different person. Very, very different person. So anywho, I've been back here in Kansas City for about 3.5 years. I've fallen back in love with my city. I love being here. I love when I drive down the road. I seeing the stadiums and seeing the downtown skyline at night. Where I live in the metro area, I'm very close to a lot of different kind of like iconic places in Kansas City. So I get to drive by a lot of these places a lot, and it inspires me, and I'm happy to be home in my birthplace, and I've taken great joy in discovering and rediscovering a lot of things out here. So put it that way. But I am still ongoing in therapy. That's something I definitely wanted to touch on before we kind of wrap it up. Is the Army and my life took a massive toll on me. And I did not realize it until I got out. I had my foot, metaphorically speaking, I had my foot on the accelerator for so long. So I got out of the Army when I was 40. I probably started like punching the accelerator when I was like 13 or 14. So, whatever that math is, and
yeah,
as soon as I took my foot off the accelerator when I got out, I was like, oh shit. Oh fucking shit. Like, what the hell? Like this ain't right. You know what I mean? Like now it's like really like there was kind of a general feeling of malaise after coming back from my third tour, you know what I mean? And a lot of life shit. But after I got out, I was not prepared for the change I experienced getting out. I kind of like when I got into the Army at 29, I kind of got in and swam with the fishes, man. Like it really wasn't hard for me to get in. Getting out like kind of fucked me up. Like as far as like it was a very, very rough transition. I'm still 3.5 years later. I am still transitioning back to being in the civilian world. Like there are things that I just, it's really hard to explain. And that's why I'm in therapy. That's why I'm in therapy, because it's something that's very hard to put your finger on. It's omnipresent. It's there every day. The pain is there every day. Like the freaking, there's stuff I could describe where it's rough. And I'm not saying this for anyone to feel bad about me or anything like that. I'm very proud of what I did. I wouldn't change a fucking thing.
Yeah.
But the Army in my life came at great cost to other things. It came at great cost to a lot of my relationships. Be it, romantic relationships, relationships with the homies, you know what I mean? Like friendships, people you meet randomly, like in random places, you know what I mean? Like just how I am around people, it has taken a great toll, you know what I mean? And I didn't think about it as much, but one of my friends said it one time, and he's completely correct. Is like, I changed. And that's the easiest way I can state it is I am not the same person that I was before I got in the Army. And that's kind of a load of bricks on your back. You know what I mean? That when you have a rough time being around the people you love, you know what I mean? And they have a rough time being around you sometimes. And it comes at great cost. I was proud to pay it. I would fucking do it again in a heartbeat. Sometimes my only regret is that I didn't do it for longer. You know what I mean? Yeah. However, there is a price to pay, and the piper will come calling. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Like you getting in, joining the military is kind of like using a credit card. It's buy now, pay later. And I did not realize how much I was going to pay until I took my foot off the gas. You know what I mean? So yeah. I would like to think I would like to think I could have made it a few more years at least. And if not all the way to 20, quite possibly if I kept my body going. But I'm kind of glad in a way that I know. So if I had done 20 years, and gotten out at 20 years, the way I feel now, I got out a little bit shy of 12 years. I was in for 11 years and 9 months. Got out when I was 40, almost 41. So if I got out after 20, the way my body feels now after, almost 12, I would have probably just fallen apart. You know what I mean? Like literally.
Yeah.
I was rapidly encroaching on what we call the wall. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of glad I got out, and I enjoyed my time, but it definitely came at great cost. And there is something to be said. There's something to be said for that. I had an immense amount of fun. Met some of the greatest people I've ever met in my life, true heroes, giants and kings and queens of this fucking earth. And I get to say I served shoulder to shoulder with them. And nobody can ever take that away from me. And I guess if that's the cost, then fucking worth it. You know what I mean? Real quick before we wrap it up, I've got my shit hanging up right here. Do you want to see it? Would you like to see my?
I mean, if you want to share with the audience, go ahead.
I'll just so they can see what my dress uniform looks like when I got out. Oh. There we go. So let me know if you can see this, Joe.
Yep.
Yeah, so that was basically what my uniform looked like on my last day, on my very last day in the Army. So that tells a story. It tells a story. So that's pretty much that.
I can only imagine what fucking Drill Sergeant Campbell would have been like. You talk about how you had the orders to do it,
yeah,
and then you had the deck statement, and it's like, what?
I wanted to there were
what
on my
would
last
Drill Sergeant Campbell have been like
on my last deployment. I was one of 4 squad leaders. 2 of the others became drill sergeants, and the third became a recruiter. And I think all 3 of them are still in. They're making rank. They're kicking ass and taking names. You know what I mean? I'm proud of them.
I was going to say Ronnie J is one of them. He's a frequent guest on DT on DD214 network with us. So there's
we
just imagine if you
we 100% kicked some ass and took some names. I'm not so I stood shoulder to shoulder with fucking giants and kings and queens of this earth. No shit. I'm proud of it all, but for all the kids out there, better make sure you really, really want to do it, because there will be a price to pay. Be very warned, Freddie knows.
So I guess at this point, with that being said, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up with our final thought. I've asked Jay to provide that for the week. I don't have any fancy fucking tickers right now or anything like
You're
that.
okay.
This is episode 1.
Yeah,
This is learning curve. So we now
you can,
know we can make it to about 45 minutes
yep.
before we have to just refresh the whole fucking thing.
And you can edit whatever you want later.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. So I'm gonna go ahead and give the floor over to you. I will be right back, Jay.
yeah, you're fine. Yeah, I just wanted to, let everybody know that life is very dynamic. It's not static. So there's going to be extreme fluctuations sometimes in everything that you do. For every time you get happy, there's going to be another time you get sad. Sometimes there's some very, very high mountains that you climb, and there's some very, very low valleys. I want to encourage everybody to take note of where you're at mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, like all of it. And be serious about yourself and be honest with yourself about it. I have lost many friends to suicide. Some of them are the people that I served in Afghanistan with. Some of them are the people I served in the Army with. Some of them are friends from back home in Tucson. Okay. The losses are shattering every single time. We want you here. We need you here. Okay. We can't do it without you. You can't do it without other people. You can't be an island. Okay. Like reach out and touch someone. Okay. Call somebody. Okay. Make plans to hang out, do something, do literally anything except nothing. Okay. You got to work on yourself. You got to work hard at it. Okay. I'd be lying if I didn't say I've been in some extremely rough and low places in my life. Did it make me tougher? Yeah, hell yeah, it did. But it's debilitating when you're in the middle of it, and I understand that. I can promise you all I understand that. But we need you here. Okay, there is someone out there that loves and cherishes the fact that you are on this earth. Okay, stay here as long as possible. Okay, this shit's a party, dude. Like, we all know we got to go someday. That's fucking fine. We don't need to fucking speed up the process. Okay, we still have a lot of work to do. There's still a lot of shit going on. Like, we want you all present for it. We need your help. Okay, and part of your help is showing up every day. And now all you got to do is show up. Just stay with us. If you need help, call somebody, reach a friend, a family member, homie you freaking drink with at the bar, whatever. Okay, if it's 3:00 in the morning and you're feeling guilty about calling somebody and waking them up, okay, there's other options. You can text or dial 988, or you can dial the National Suicide Hotline at 1-800-273-8255. That's 1-800-273-TALK. Okay, people love you. We love you. We need you here. We need you in the fight. Okay, if I can do this shit, I promise you motherfuckers can do it too. All right, so like, we're just gonna leave it like that. Like, stick around because there's more to come.
Yeah, exactly. Just make sure you're here. Make sure you're back for the second episode. Make sure you're here for shit. If you're one of our many viewers over at the other show at DD214 Network, make sure you're there every week for us there.
All of Clean Sanchez Media, freaking
all of Clean Sanchez Media, Tech Guy Media, Basement Game Works,
Yep.
all of the above, all of the organizations and groups.
You, me, and Lore, like all the homies, we need you here.
So, thank you to everybody that watches this episode. For this is our first episode, so this is going to be a little bit of a bumpy one, like every first ever is. But this is the first of many. Welcome again to Flag for Removal. Thank you all for watching. Thank you, Jay, for coming on and opening up, sharing so openly about life and the trials and tribulations and the path you took. I know it's not always easy to do so.
Well, thank you for having me. And I just want to say, like, that's also probably part of my, like, the healing process is being able to talk to people about things that aren't always necessarily comfortable to talk about. Yeah. And it like I like telling everybody during the final thought, don't be an island. It would be so easy for me to just sit at home and do nothing all day, every day, forever and ever until the day comes. I don't think that's what my purpose is. You know what I mean? Like whatever a purpose is, like, I don't think that's mine. So yeah. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
No problem. You're always welcome back. I'm sure there'll be other episodes eventually where
I told my story, but there's a lot of stories I didn't tell. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So thank you again for being our first guest. And a cherished guest, of course, great friend. We will see everybody next time. Obviously with this show, going to try to push for weekly just to let the audience know we're going to try, but there might be some scheduling issues getting, guests lined up. Cause I mean, I asked Jay here a month ago, it seems,
probably,
like, hey, we're finally going to kick this off. Are you good with being the first guest? He said yes when I said this week. And this was a Sunday I asked him. Okay. And it was 3 weeks ago. So 3-4 weeks ago, something like that. So, this is the beginning of an era. Again, this show won't work without a guest. So obviously there's not going to be any episodes with just myself. Well, who knows? We might drop a special and just, if there's a week where we can't get a guest, just sit down and have story time with Joe. If we have to, we have to. I definitely want this podcast to strive and get better. So thank you again, everybody, for joining or for coming through and watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you drop a comment. Tell us what you do like, what you don't like. Any suggestions, we're open to them. If you want to be a guest, you can reach out to, it's what's the fucking address I created for this again? Hold on. I got to remember the fucking email. Brain fart.
Something at Tech Guy Media or something? Or Tech Guy?
Yeah, it's I got it here. It is, yep. So if you want to be a guest, you can reach out to us via email at F as in Foxtrot, the number 4, R as in Romeo at techguymedia.com. Again, that's F4R at techguymedia.com. F is in flagged, 4, R is in removal. We hope to see everybody next time. Have a good one.
Good to see you.
Flagged out.
Anyway, listen up now.